1. Let me tell you about this super interesting 1980 Chevy C10. I just checked out on Craigslist. This isn't just any old truck. It's one of those special ones from 1980 when they first brought in those rectangular headlights. And get this, it's got that unique 33-slot grille that they only did for that 1 year. At $15,975, you're looking at a pretty clean example with just 82K miles on the clock. The red paint has a nice shine to it, and they've done some tasteful upgrades like the cowl hood and polished wheels. What I really dig about this truck is that it strikes that perfect balance. It's nice enough to show off, but still totally usable as a pickup, with that practical bed liner ready for weekend jobs. Under the hood, there's a clean LS-swapped 350 V8 that's been really well done. They've kept it looking stockish with those red valve covers, but you're getting modern reliability. It's paired with a 3-speed auto, and the whole drivetrain seems to be in great shape. Inside, it's mostly original but well maintained. You've got cloth bench seats, an upgrade from original, working heat, and even the old-school Delco stereo is still there. Nice touches like LED dome lights and fresh carpeting show someone's been taking care of it. 2. Let me tell you about this 1978 Chevy El Camino I just spotted on Craigslist for $8,000. I've got to be completely honest with you here. This one's definitely a project car, and the seller's being upfront about it being in fair condition. Look, the El Camino is one of those unique vehicles that combines classic muscle car style with pickup utility, and the '78 model is from that sweet spot in the Malaise era. But this particular example needs some love. The seller's straight up telling us it needs a tune-up, which is probably just the beginning of what it needs. It's rocking the V8 and automatic transmission combo, which is what you want in an El Camino, and it's wearing blue paint. The clean title is definitely a plus, but with the minimal description and fair condition rating, you'll want to do a thorough inspection before pulling the trigger. At $8,000, and the seller noting price can be discussed, there might be some wiggle room here. But remember, these cars can become money pits pretty quickly if you're not careful. You'll want to check for the usual suspects: rust in the bed and around the wheel wells, frame condition, transmission health, and all the electrical systems. If you're looking for a project El Camino and you're handy with a wrench, this could be a decent starting point. Just go in with your eyes open and maybe budget for some immediate mechanical attention. These cars are getting harder to find, but make sure you negotiate based on the work it needs. 3. Let me tell you about this absolutely fascinating 1972 Chevy Suburban I just found on Craigslist for $20,000. This isn't your typical old-school SUV. We're looking at a seriously well-thought-out restomod here. First off, let's talk about what makes this Suburban special. Instead of the original power plant, it's running a modern 5.3L Vortec V8 paired with a 4L80E transmission. That's a really smart combo that brings reliable modern power to this classic body. The NP205 transfer case means this beast can handle serious off-road duty when you want it to. The odometer shows just 26,244 miles, though that's likely since the rebuild or conversion. What really catches my attention is the list of recent work: new belt, tensioner, pulleys, fuel rails, spark plugs, MAF sensor, axle bearings, tires, fuel injection system, and rear differential. That's a serious investment in reliability right there. Inside, they've added some nice touches like a custom wood cargo floor and sound deadening. Trust me, these old Suburbans can be pretty noisy without it. The aftermarket sound system is a nice modern touch too. At $20K, you're not buying a cheap project. You're getting a modernized classic that combines vintage charm with modern reliability. The seller lists it in excellent condition, and based on the work done, it sounds like a well-sorted example. These early Suburbans are becoming increasingly collectible, especially clean 4x4 versions like this one. 4. Let me tell you about this absolutely killer 1965 Ford F-250 I just spotted on Craigslist for $17,450. This isn't your average old truck. It's a seriously well-built rat rod with some impressive upgrades under that perfectly worn patina. Let's talk about what makes this F-250 special. Under the hood, you've got what started life as an FE352 that's been bored and stroked to 390 cubic inches. The seller says it shakes the ground like a funny car. And with all the performance upgrades like the Holley 750 CFM carb, Edelbrock intake, and custom exhaust, I believe it. The mechanical work on this truck is extensive. We're talking a complete overhaul with less than 300 miles since the rebuild. It's got the 3-speed manual column shift, a Dana 60 rear end with 4.10 gears, that's serious pulling power, and they've upgraded pretty much everything that matters. New brakes, wiring, cooling system, you name it. What I really dig about this build is the attention to both performance and practicality. They've added modern conveniences like LED lighting and a hidden kill switch, but kept that perfect patina exterior that gives it so much character. The interior's been refreshed with a custom rebuilt bench seat, but it still maintains that vintage feel. At $17,450, you're getting a turnkey classic truck that's been thoroughly gone through. The seller's extensive list of new parts and upgrades shows this wasn't a half-hearted build. The registration's good through 2025, it's got a clean title, and while the true mileage is uncertain, likely 147K original, that's pretty irrelevant given the comprehensive rebuild. 5. Let me tell you about this interesting 1974 Ford F100 I just found on Craigslist for $6,900. Though I noticed the seller lists it as both a 74 and 73 in the description, so that's something to clarify. This truck's got some nice upgrades under the hood. It's running a 302 V8 with 351 heads and a Holley Sniper EFI system, which is a pretty sweet combination for reliable power. The odometer shows 97,201 miles, and there's been some serious maintenance done about 8,000 miles ago. Let's talk about those recent upgrades. New heater motor, cap and rotor, alternator, blower motor fan, front springs, rebuilt rear end, fresh brakes, and new tires. That's a decent amount of work that shows someone's been taking care of the mechanical side. At $6,900, you're looking at a fair price for a classic F100 with some nice upgrades. Just a heads up though, the seller lists it as FWD in the specs, which has to be a mistake since these trucks were RWD. Make sure to verify all the details in person. For someone looking for a classic Ford pickup that's been mechanically sorted and has some nice power upgrades, this could be a solid buy. The white paint looks clean in the listing, and with that Holley Sniper EFI, it should start and run reliably. The seller's also open to trades, which might give you some negotiating flexibility. 6. Let's talk about this 1964 Ford F150 I just spotted on Craigslist for $4,000. I've got to be straight with you. This one's definitely a project truck, and the seller's being pretty honest about its condition. We're looking at a 3/4-ton custom cab with a V8 and a 4-speed manual transmission, which is a cool combo. But here's the real deal. The truck's got some issues you need to know about. The seller's upfront that it's smoking, which usually means you're looking at some engine work in your future. Could be valve guides, piston rings, or worse. With 128,500 miles on the clock, and the seller noting fairly straight with some rust, you're probably looking at both mechanical and bodywork ahead. The good news is, it does start, run, and drive. So at least you've got something to work with. Plus, it comes with a clean Colorado title, which is always a plus. At $4,000 firm, you're basically buying a project truck that needs love. These old Fords are getting harder to find, and when restored, they're beautiful pieces of American history. But be realistic. You're not getting a ready-to-roll classic here. You're getting a starting point that needs some serious TLC. If you're handy with a wrench and looking for a vintage Ford project, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure you go in knowing you'll need to address that smoking issue, and probably some rust repair too. These old workhorses can be rewarding projects, but they'll definitely test your patience and your wallet. 7. Let me tell you about this super interesting 1965 Ford F350 dually tow truck I just found on Craigslist for $7,000. This is one of those unique pieces that really catches your eye. Let's talk about what makes this rig special. It's running a 390 FE big block with a 2-barrel carb, matched to a 4-speed manual transmission. That's a solid powertrain combo for a vintage tow truck. Interestingly, it's sitting on a 1975 frame, but don't let that throw you. That's actually a pretty common and smart upgrade for these old workhorses. The seller's being upfront about its history. It's an original Southern California truck from Bakersfield that served as a display piece for a tow company. That explains why it's in such solid shape with no major rust issues, just some light surface rust here and there. The yellow paint is original to when the current owner got it, giving it that perfect vintage tow truck vibe. Mechanically, they say everything works. It starts, runs, drives, and stops, with all gears functioning properly. It's got power steering and power brakes, which are nice features to have on a truck this size. The towing equipment is all functional too, which is pretty impressive for its age. One important note, it's currently on non-op status with the DMV, so you can't legally drive it on public roads right now. But there are no back fees owed, which is a plus. 8. Let me tell you about this beast of a 1973 GMC High Sierra C2500 I just spotted on Craigslist for $24,900. This is one of those serious heavy-duty trucks from the golden era of square bodies. What we've got here is a Camper Special 4x4, packing the legendary 454 big block. That's some serious muscle. These Camper Specials were built extra tough for hauling those big slide-in campers, so you're getting beefed-up suspension and cooling systems right from the factory. The odometer shows 1,000 miles, which is likely after a rebuild or could be 101,000. You'll want to verify that. The seller's keeping the description pretty brief, but mentions it runs and drives good with an automatic transmission. The green paint looks clean in the listing, and being a 73, you're getting that classic square body style that's become incredibly popular with collectors. Now let's talk price. $24,900 is definitely on the higher end for these trucks, even with the desirable 454/4x4 combo and Camper Special package. The seller is open to offers though, which gives some room for negotiation. Before pulling the trigger, you'll definitely want to do a thorough inspection. Check the usual rust spots, verify the 4x4 system works properly, and make sure that Big 454 is running as it should. These trucks are getting harder to find, especially in clean condition. But make sure you're getting your money's worth at this price point. 9. Let me tell you about this interesting 1982 Chevy K20 Silverado I just found on Craigslist for $5,000. I've got to be straight with you. This one's a bit of a project, but it's got some cool features that make it worth talking about. First off, we're looking at a 6.2L diesel with the rare NP 833 4-speed manual transmission. That's a pretty unique combo. The truck's showing 92,000 miles, which the seller believes to be original. Being a K20, it's a 3/4-ton 4x4, which makes it a proper workhorse. Now let's be honest about the issues. The main problem is the shift linkage is worn out and needs rebuilding. The seller says a welder could fix it up pretty easily, but you'll want to factor that repair into your plans. They also mention it needs a few other things without specifying, so you'll want to ask about those details. On the positive side, there's been some recent work done. Newly reupholstered seats with custom white piping and heated elements, though they need to be wired up. Brand new batteries with warranty, and freshly serviced brakes. Those cab lights are a cool factory option you don't see every day. At $5,000, you're buying a project truck that needs some love. But these old square-body Chevys are getting harder to find, especially with the diesel manual combo. The seller seems pretty honest about the truck's condition and mentions they've done a lot of work to it. 10. Let me tell you about this 1981 Chevy C10 I just spotted on Craigslist from Sorensen's Auto Sales in Graham, Washington, going for $8,000, or $7,995 to be exact. This is one of those classic square-body C10s, the regular cab, regular bed configuration, wearing what appears to be its original brown paint with a tan interior. The odometer shows 19,498 miles, but let's be real here. The listing mentions it's rolled over, so we're likely looking at 119,498 or even 219,498 miles. It's a standard half-ton setup with a V8 and automatic transmission combo in rear-wheel drive. Being a dealer listing, the description is pretty bare bones, which means you'll definitely want to ask some important questions about its mechanical condition, maintenance history, and any recent work done. At $8,000, You're in the middle range for the C10S. Not a bargain basement project truck, but not a fully restored example either. These square-body Chevys have been climbing in value lately, and they make great platforms for both restoration and customization. Before pulling the trigger, you'll want to check all the usual trouble spots: cab corners, rocker panels, bed floor, and frame rails for rust. Also, make sure to verify the running condition of that V8 and transmission. 11. Let me tell you about this sweet 1965 Chevy C10 I just found on Craigslist for $20,000. This one's got an interesting mix of original charm and smart upgrades. Let's start with the heart of this truck. It's running its original 283 V8 with a 3-on-the-tree manual transmission. That's a classic combo right there. The odometer shows 26,706 miles, but being a 65, it's definitely rolled over at least once. But here's what's cool. They've added some modern upgrades where it counts: power steering, tubular front control arms, and power front disc brakes. That means you get classic looks with much better handling and stopping power. The truck's wearing what sounds like its original patina with an orange color, which is super popular right now. No fancy paint job here, just honest wear that tells this truck's story. Inside, both the heater and gauges are working properly, which isn't always the case with these old trucks. Now let's talk about that $20,000 price tag. That's definitely on the higher end for a non-restored C10, even with the upgrades. However, these first-gen C10S have been climbing in value, especially ones that maintain their original character while having sensible modern upgrades for drivability. If you're looking for a classic truck that combines vintage charm with improved driving dynamics, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to verify the condition of that 283 engine and transmission, and check all the usual rust spots these trucks are known for. The seller says it runs and drives great, but at this price point, you'll want to confirm everything is as described. 12. Let me tell you about this interesting 1972 Chevy Stepside 4x4 I just spotted on Craigslist for $22,000. This one's got some potential, but let's be real about what you're getting here. We're looking at a classic 4x4 setup with the tried and true 350 V8 paired to a turbo 350 automatic and a 205 transfer case. That's a solid drivetrain combo. The truck's showing 53,000 miles and comes with a wooden bed, which adds some nice character. Here's the story. This truck's been garage stored since 2002. That's over 20 years. And the seller's done some basic recommissioning work: new battery, oil change, fuel tank flush, and carb cleaning. They say it starts and runs great, which is promising after such a long sit. Now let's talk about the issues. It needs a windshield, and while the seller says there's very little rust, mostly surface, you'll want to verify that claim carefully. These old trucks can hide rust in sneaky places, especially being a 4x4. At $22,000, that's pretty steep for a truck that's been sitting for 2 decades and needs work. The seller suggests it could be either a frame-off restoration candidate or driven as is, but at this price point, you might expect more of the restoration work to be done already. If you're seriously interested, you'll want to do a thorough inspection of the frame, body mounts, cab corners, and all the mechanical systems. These 72 stepsides, especially in 4x4, are desirable trucks, but make sure you negotiate based on the actual condition and the work it needs. Could be a cool project, but the price might need some adjustment to make it a fair deal. 13. Let me tell you about this head-turning 1974 Chevy C10 I just found on Craigslist for $25,000. This isn't your average square body. We're talking about a fully restored short bed with some serious muscle under the hood. The star of the show here is that massive 454 big block V8, paired with a bulletproof TH400 automatic transmission. That's a potent combination that'll definitely get your attention. The 12-bolt rear end with 3.73 gears and posy traction is exactly what you want for putting all that power down. The truck's showing 90,000 miles, but being a full restoration, that number's less relevant. They've added some nice performance touches with an Edelbrock carburetor and valve covers, and it's sitting pretty on custom wheels and tires. That yellow paint really makes this truck pop. At $25,000, You're definitely at the higher end of the C10 market. But for a fully restored example with a 454/TH400 combo, it's in the ballpark of what these trucks are bringing these days. Short bed C10s are super popular right now, and this one's got the power to back up its looks. If you're in the market for a turnkey classic truck with serious muscle, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to verify the quality of the restoration work and that big 454's condition. These trucks are becoming legitimate collectibles, and a well-done example like this could be a solid investment. Just make sure everything's as clean underneath as it appears on top. 14. Let me tell you about this interesting 1965 GMC pickup I just spotted on Craigslist for $17,000. This is one of those cool resto mod builds that combines classic looks with modern reliability. Let's talk about what makes this truck special. It's sitting on a 2002 Chevy frame with a 5.3 LV8 and 4L60E transmission swap. That's actually a really smart combination because you're getting modern fuel injection, better handling, and improved reliability compared to the original setup. Plus, these LS-based 5.3s are known for being solid performers with great potential for upgrades. The truck's wearing fresh paint in blue, and they've installed a new wood bed, which always adds a nice touch to these classics. Now here's where you need to pay attention. The interior needs to be finished. The seller says everything's there, just needs final touches. But in project car language, that could mean anything from a few hours' work to a weekend-long job. The odometer's broken, but with the modern chassis swap, original mileage isn't really relevant here anyway. At $17,000, you're paying for the work that's already been done. The frame swap, paint, and bed. That's not unreasonable for a well-done resto mod, but you'll want to inspect the quality of the chassis swap and make sure everything's properly wired and plumbed. 15. Let me tell you about this eye-catching 1971 Chevy C10 stepside I just found on Craigslist for $24,500. This isn't your average work truck. Someone's put some serious thought into making this a cool cruiser. First off, let's talk about that color. It's plum-crazy purple, which is actually a classic Mopar color that looks absolutely killer on this Chevy. The truck's running a small block Chevy engine paired with a 700 R4 transmission. That's a great upgrade from the original setup because you get the benefit of an overdrive gear for better highway cruising. The 3.73 Posei rear end is a nice compromise between performance and drivability. One of the coolest upgrades is the vintage air system. That means you get modern AC comfort in your classic truck. They've also added a Bluetooth stereo with a subwoofer, so you've got modern tunes to cruise with. Those 18-inch Cragar wheels give it the perfect stance and style. The odometer's rolled over, but on a modified classic like this, that's less important than the condition and quality of the upgrades. At $24,500, you're paying for a well-sorted classic that's been upgraded in all the right ways. These early 70s stepsides are getting harder to find, especially ones with thoughtful modifications like this. The seller's even offering delivery, which could be a plus if you're not local to Ogden, Utah. 16. Let me tell you about this interesting 1980 Ford F-154 X4 I just spotted on Craigslist for $3,500. This is one of those honest, no-frills work trucks that's got some potential. Let's talk about what we've got here. It's running the legendary 4.9L 300 CI, straight 6, paired with a 4-speed manual, which is actually one of the most bulletproof combinations Ford ever made. These inline 6s are known for running forever, and with 225,222 miles, though the ad also mentions 122,498, so we'll want to clarify that. It's probably just getting broken in. Being a former Kansas farm truck is actually a good thing. These trucks typically saw regular maintenance and might have avoided the worst of road salt. It's got some nice features like dual fuel tanks, and they've added a new aluminum radiator and some meaty 33-inch Mastercraft mud tires. The seller notes the bench seat is in good shape, and it's got manual windows, which means fewer things to break. At $3,500, you're getting a lot of truck for the money. These old Fords are getting harder to find, especially 4x4S with the straight 6/manual combo. Now, being realistic, at this price point, you're not getting a show truck. It'll need some TLC, but it could make either a solid restoration project or a dependable work truck. These old Fords respond well to restoration, and parts are still readily available. 17. Let me tell you about this super rare 1974 Chevy Love pickup I just found on Craigslist for $10,900. These little trucks are getting really hard to find, especially in clean condition. For those who might not know, the Chevy Love light utility vehicle was actually built by Isuzu and rebadged as a Chevy. They were compact pickups that offered great utility and fuel economy when gas prices were soaring in the 70s. This one's showing 32,000 miles, though at nearly 50 years old, you'll want to verify if that's original. The truck's wearing blue paint and comes with a manual transmission, which is what you want in these little trucks. The seller's keeping the description pretty minimal, but they note it has a clean title and current registration, which is always a plus. Now let's talk about that $10,900 asking price. That's definitely on the higher end for a Lovey, but these trucks have been climbing in value as people realize how rare they're becoming. The seller is open to offers, OBO, so there might be some room for negotiation. Before pulling the trigger, you'll definitely want to check for rust. These trucks were notorious for rusting, especially in the bed, fenders, and cab corners. Also verify all the mechanical components, as parts can be tricky to find for these. 18. Let me tell you about this super cool 1968 Ford Ranch wagon I just spotted on Craigslist for $12,500. These classic wagons are getting harder to find, especially ones with some interesting features like this one. Let's talk about what makes this wagon special. It's running a 390 V8, which is a great engine for these big family cruisers, offering plenty of torque for hauling the whole crew around. What's really interesting is that this is an original sunroof car, which is pretty rare for a 68 wagon. The power rear window is another cool feature that actually works. These often don't in old wagons. The sellers added some nice modern touches like a custom sound system and boss wheels with good tires. They've also installed a quick disconnect steering wheel, but smartly kept the original. That's always good to have. The odometer shows 10,000 miles, but on a 68 that's likely 110,000 or 210,000. The paint shows some fading, which is honest of the seller to mention, but they say it's not too bad. The interior is described as clean, which is important because these old wagon interiors can often be pretty rough. At $12,500, or best offer, you're in the ballpark for these classic wagons, especially one with the 390 and some unique features like the sunroof. These old Ford wagons are gaining popularity as cool family cruisers that can handle car show duty on the weekends. 19. Let me tell you about this absolutely killer 1981 Chevy Silverado short bed I just found on Craigslist for $27,500. This isn't your average square body. We're talking about a rust-free Arizona truck in a rare factory yellow color. Let's dive into what makes this truck special. Under the hood, you've got the trusty 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. That's a combo that's proven itself over millions of miles. The truck's showing 90,000 miles, and being an Arizona truck means it's likely escaped the rust issues that plague most of these trucks. They've done some really nice upgrades here. It's got a 2-inch drop stance that gives it that perfect look, sitting on new Koi wheels and tires. The exterior's rocking that patina paint that's so popular right now, complemented by fresh chrome bumpers and new exterior lenses. Inside, they've gone through and refreshed pretty much everything. New dash pad, front seat, carpet, and dash bezel. Plus, the AC blows cold, which is a huge plus in a classic truck. Now, let's talk about that $27,500 price tag. Yes, that's serious money for a square body. But clean, rust-free examples are getting harder to find, especially short beds with documented Arizona history. The combination of the rare factory color, rust-free body, and all the recent updates makes this a pretty special truck. 20. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1975 Chevy K20 barn find I just spotted on Craigslist for $20,500. This is one of those time capsule situations that's got an interesting story. Let's break this down. We're looking at a one-owner, pre-smog K24X4 that's been sitting on jack stands in a shop. The odometer shows 26,000 miles, and given the story and documentation, those miles might actually be original. It's got the classic 350 engine and TH350 transmission combo. And the seller mentions it might have one of the better transfer cases, possibly an NP205, which would be a big plus. Now here's where it gets interesting. The truck was parked for what appears to be a transmission-related issue. The previous owner had started to diagnose either a rear main seal leak or transfer case issue, but never finished the job. The air filter and distributor cap were removed, and it's got headers installed. The tires might be original or from the mid-90s. It was last tagged in '97. And it comes with all the paperwork and a signed title. That's actually pretty rare for a truck this old. At $20,500, that's strong money for a truck that needs work, even for a pre-smog K20. However, if those miles are truly original and the body and frame are solid, it could be worth it to the right buyer. These 75 K20S are getting harder to find, especially one-owner examples with documentation.